Hey gang, we're in Colton, California today, and we're at a cemetery called Montecito Memorial Park, and wanted to come to the grave of a man who, well, it's a really strange story. He's, at the time, was the youngest person in the United States that was sent to jail, sent to prison for life, for murder. He was only 11 years old, and his story is kind of reminiscent of another story I did in Wisconsin of a boy named Emmanuel Dannon. This boy was abused as a child. It was kind of the opposite. He was killed. And that's another story, link I can put up, very sad story. But in this case, the child rebelled. I don't know that the abuse was as bad, but still, this was kind of a common thing back in those days where, especially the farmers, the kids were treated like slaves and often abused. And many of them, these kids were orphans brought in, and they would work like farmhands, almost to death. But in this case, it was in Iowa where this boy, John Wesley Elkins, was with his family. So we'll walk to his grave. I'll tell you this really sad story. And there's really not much to see here. Yeah, it's a nice, quiet, pretty place. But all monuments are in the ground, at these memorial parks. There's no statuary. So let's walk over there. I'll tell you the story. Like I say, he was 11 years old. Now, his mother had abandoned the family shortly after his birth. She was deeply troubled, and she was not well liked. And it said that she had turned to prostitution, left the family. His father would take John, and they would move on. And eventually, John's father would remarry. The new family would have another child, a baby girl. They would name her Georgia. And the little family would settle in Clayton County, Iowa. It was a place called Bear Creek in Elk Township. And they became tenants on a farm of a man named Alan Parker. So we go to July of 1889. Young John, as many young boys, would have to work hard on that farm, almost worked to death, probably. As I had said, his father and stepmother did not treat him well. And in addition to all the hard work, he had to do all the care for the one-year-old baby. So his half-sister, and her name was Georgia. And he was tired of it all. He was sick and tired of being taken advantage of. He was in the barn this one fateful night, and he just had enough. So what he did is he tiptoed in the house after all the brooding, and he took his dad's rifle off the wall, and he went into the bedroom. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. Parents were sleeping, and he reared back, pointed the rifle down, shot his dad, put a bullet in his brain. Stepmother wakes up screaming, so I guess he had a club. He took the club and he started beating her over the head. He beat her to death. And then he turned around and he saw that his father was groaning and moving, so he beat him to death. So he killed both parents. Killed both parents. Baby sister is laying there, in the bed, probably crying. Georgia's splattered with blood. So he picks her up and he takes her he gets the horses hitched, takes the carriage, goes 4 miles to the neighbor. And he says, hey, a stranger came and killed my parents. What do we do? And of course they were mortified, so they call the police or the sheriff or whoever was the authority at that time, and they came and they did an investigation. And they quickly suspected the boy, and they pressured him. And he finally confessed. He said, yeah, I did it. And he said, I was abused. And he told them the horrible stories. But it wouldn't matter. He would be put in jail, and there would be a case, and he was quickly found guilty. And normally it would be a quick sentence of death, right? But there would be mercy. He was only 11 years old. But he was sent to prison for life. It was January of 1890, and he was sent to a maximum security prison, Anamosa Penitentiary in Iowa. He was only 4 foot 8 inches tall, weighing 73 pounds. Can you imagine? Well, in prison he became a model prisoner. He worked in the library. He did well as he could. Imagine with all the grown-ups. It was not until April of 1902 where things would take a turn. He was writing letters to everybody, especially influential people, and there was a whole lobby to get him pardoned. And in 1902, well, he didn't get pardoned, he got paroled. And at that point, the governor made him write a letter. He said, you know what, you're on parole. You would have to have this condition where you write a monthly letter to me for the next 10 years, describing your activities. And he did that. And in 1912, he was fully pardoned by the Iowa governor. He was fully pardoned. After his release from prison, he attended Cornell College and then the University of Minnesota, and he did well there. He graduated with honors. He eventually settled in St. Paul. He worked as a railway clerk for the St. Paul Railway Company, and in 1922, he's 43 years old, he got married. Actually, they went to Honolulu, Hawaii. And he settled down out here in San Bernardino County. They came back here. And he never committed another crime. He died here at the age of 81. It was 1961. And at the time of his death, the baby, his half-sister who survived him, she was 71 years old, Georgia Ellis. She stayed back. She was in St. Paul, Minnesota. And John would have no children. So he died. I don't know if his wife preceded him in death or after. But this is where he's buried, right here. Yeah. This is his grave, John Elkins. 1879 and 1961. Youngest person in the United States ever to be sent to an adult prison. Sentenced to life for murder at the age of 11. Wow. Gets pardoned. Gets paroled after 12 years and gets pardoned. So, quite a story this. The picture that I had shown is when he was put in prison around that time, and the picture I show now is the picture when he was released. So it's a tough story, you know. He was abused. You don't know what went on, how bad the abuse was, but it must have been pretty bad. So this is how it went in those days. A lot of kids suffered, but murder, wow. It must have been pretty bad, because the way this guy, John, lived his life, I don't think he, you know, this is just my take, I don't think he was probably a bad guy. It just heaped up on him, but we'll never know. Rest in peace, John W. Elkins. Rest in peace.